Hello everyone, so this morning I'm at Montezuma Falls, which is one of the tallest and most spectacular waterfalls in Tasmania. It's a 3-hour return walk, but I'll be extending that and going to several other waterfalls. So there's Rawlinson Falls, which is the easiest of the three to reach. You just keep going along the 4-wheel drive track past Montezuma. Frazer Falls, which is a steep scramble up a side creek for about 300-400 metres, and Svengali Falls, which as far as I know no one's been to because I've never seen any information on it. So that'll be the most interesting one, I reckon, and that's also the first one that we'll come to. So pretty much going to be bushwhacking up those creeks and hopefully I'll find what I'm looking for. I'm at the official trailhead now. Only 5 minutes in and I've come to this little cascading falls next to the track. Remember this from all the other times I've been here. Flowing reasonably well today. Can't really see it too well through the trees, but it's not a bad drop over several cascades. The interesting thing about this track is it follows an old tramway that used to lug stuff. I don't really know what. I probably should know what it is. Maybe I think logs and that sort of thing along here towards Williamsford. And there's still some of the old tram sleepers that you can see at some points along the track. It's also why it's such a flat and easy walk, because it had to be flat. An interesting tidbit about this area is this whole place was completely logged about 100 years ago. So all the trees you see on this track have completely grown from nothing. And the recovery of the nature around here is quite incredible, because you really wouldn't know it. It's so lush. Lots of moss. Well, I've arrived at the bridge where I thought I'd start heading upstream to Svengali Falls, but I have had a little look at the map and it seems as if there's a bit of an error in where it places this bridge, because according to the map it should cross over the creek and there should be a forking in the creek just up there, but there doesn't really look to be one, and the GPS tracks I've taken show this the bridge actually being a fair bit further upstream than the maps show. And I'm thinking those two creeks actually join just down there, and the Svengali Falls creek is actually this one. So I'll start heading upstream here and hopefully it's the right place. Okay, so it's opened up enough for me to take a bit of video, but this is been a pretty hardcore hike. I've tried a lot of times because there's been lots of logs and stuff choking up the river. I've tried plenty of times to to climb up the banks, but it's always too steep and slippery. So you pretty much always have to stay in the river, or the creek I should say. I think I'm about halfway there hopefully. But as you can see, it's really steep and so slippery up there. So if you can't get through the river, you probably just can't do it. Hopefully I can make it there. Well, Svengali Falls is into view up ahead. As you can see, I've still got to get around this cascade, which will not be easy, because the rocks are incredibly slippery. But the falls look pretty impressive, so I'm keen to get up there. Well, I've made it to Svengali Falls. It's not the most impressive waterfall you'll see, but the achievement's really just in getting here. It's probably about a 10 to 15 metre drop, and it would be a bit better if not for these logs that are in the way. I mean, it's still a nice waterfall. I reckon it'll be less impressive than any of the other ones I'll see today, but still, it's great to get here. Tough as hike. The main bad thing was just that, besides the fact there were lots of logs choking up the creek, was that most of the logs were really rotten. So if you step in the wrong spot, you just go straight through, and it'd be very easy to twist an ankle, I reckon. Plus there are a lot of spider webs that they're just sort of a pain. They're not going to hurt you. Anyway, this is Svengali Falls. Well, according to this sign, I'm 20 minutes away from the falls. I doubt it will take me that long, but yeah, it's only taking me 45 minutes to get to this point, and the walk said it would be 3 hours return, so that 3 hours return is at a pretty leisurely pace, I would reckon. Here's some of the sleepers from the old tramway. Pretty much it's been typical of the whole track, very flat, kind of cutting in through the ground. For a lot of the way you've been able to hear or see the river. Can't now, but I'm sure it will come back into vision and audio soon. Come to a small waterfall on a feeder creek. Go down and check it out. The view seems to get more obscured every time I come here. It's still a nice little spot. Only like 5 minutes away from Montezuma, I reckon now. Well, I've made it to the amazing Montezuma Falls. 104 metre drop. Reasonable flow of water, it's probably about average flow, I reckon. And it's really pretty impressive. 3 very distinct tiers. And there's a pretty scary suspension bridge just through there, which I'll be crossing in a minute, and I'll show you some pictures from it. Okay, so I've just crossed over the bridge. I was a bit too chicken to actually film going across it because it's very scary. It's about 50 metres above the creek, and it just really doesn't feel all that secure. I'm sure it is, but geez, it feels dodgy. The view of the waterfall isn't very good from it, to be honest. Nowhere near as good as from the base of it, so you don't really have to bother to cross it unless you really want to. So I've arrived at Fraser Creek, which is the creek responsible for obviously Frazer Falls. The waterfall's about 300 to 400 metres upstream of here. I can actually hear a smaller waterfall just up there, but even that looks a bit tough to get to. It's very steep up the creek, and I reckon impossible to get up that way. But I've heard there is an easier route if you keep going a little further, so hopefully I can find that. But there's absolutely no way you can make it up that way unless the creek was completely dry, and even then you'd probably be struggling. So I've come to a point where there are a few takes marking the route now. One there, that blue one there, and then I'm sure you can't see it on the camera, but there's a couple more higher up. So I imagine this is the way to start the ascent. You can see it's still pretty steep, but much better than it was around the corner. So I'll see how I go. I'll see you a bit further along. As you can hear from my panting, it's been pretty steep so far. But you can also see there's actually a little bit of a trail here, because this track leads up to the Fraser Creek hut, which is a reasonably well established hut. By no means very good of a very good trail though, obviously, but the tapes help out a lot. Well, the track's got a bit harder lately. As you can see, it's a bit more overgrown, I suppose. It was more open further down. You can see into the valley there how far up I am now. I can definitely hear the waterfall, and I'm not far away according to my map, but it's just a matter of getting down there because there's a lot of scrub and it looks very steep. So I'm going to try and keep making my way along this way, and hopefully an opportunity presents itself to scramble down. Well, I'm not sure if I'm on the track or not at this point, but regardless, it's pretty much all gone for all intents and purposes, and I'm going to start descending now because it looks a bit more open here. The spot before was very scrubby. You can hear the falls. I mean, it's clearly just right there. It's just a matter of getting down to the bottom of it. So I've made it to Fraser Falls, and it's a pretty impressive spot. I probably expected it to be a little taller, but I think it's also taller than it appears here because it extends a little further than the eye can see. Still, it's probably about a 40-metre drop, and it's very satisfying to reach after an extremely difficult hike. Pretty good flow of water, although you can imagine how amazing it'd be if it really was flowing high. Okay, I think I must have missed on the way down, but there's actually a trail of poles to get up to the top. So look, there's one here, there's another one up there, and then I can see a third one up ahead. So I don't think I took the easiest route down. We'll see how they, in which direction they lead, but I imagine they'll take me up to the top of the falls. I'll turn the camera off because it's still very steep, but this certainly looks like a better route than the one I took. Okay, so this gives some idea of how steep it is. That's the track, and it continues up this way. It's probably actually steeper than the way I came down, but it's also better because there's a little more of an actual trail, and the ground is much more solid. The way I went on the way down, the rocks would almost just crumble underneath you every time you stepped, which was very worrying. Back on the main track now. It took me only 25 minutes to get back actually. It was a lot quicker, though I was walking very quickly. In total it took me about a tick under an hour and a half, not including photo stopping, to do the whole hike, although I was walking quick, so you'd probably want to allow the best part of 3 hours to do it really. Very tough hike, but it is marked. I mean, the track's very overgrown, but it's still possible to follow it if you're really careful. Definitely worth the effort if there's been some rain. It's an impressive falls. Now I'm off to Rawlinson Falls, which is another couple of kilometres away, I think. Well, I've got to a point, there's sort of a bit of a pull out of sorts here, and I can see Rawlinson Falls down below through the trees. You can get some idea of how steep it is, but I'm going to head down anyway. Looks like there's a good flow of water, and it looks like a pretty decent sized fall, so keen to go check it out. So I've made it to Rawlinson Falls. It's a pretty nice waterfall, about a 15-metre drop maybe a tad higher. It comes down in a pretty powerful little chute there. The light isn't great, but hopefully the sun will go away soon. I'll take some photos. The descent was steep, not as bad as the one to Frazer Falls, but still quite dicey. And the road is just up there, so you could probably see the falls from the road. Maybe even a bit more clearly than when I was in the spot I was.